Hi, I'm Glenn Rogers, and this is Biblical Insights. The title of our video today is The Problem of Self-Importance. And this is section number 50 of our study of Jesus' life and ministry based on the Gospel of Mark. And our text today is taken from Mark chapter 10, verses 35 through 45. This is a very interesting text. It gives us a little bit of a glimpse into the kind of people, the kind of men that Jesus chose to be his apostles and who were going to be leaders in the church after Jesus died and ascended back to heaven. And the thing that we notice here is that these guys were far from perfect. They were just normal guys. Many of them were fishermen. There were a couple of tax collectors, at least one tax collector in there. Some political, people who were very interested in pushing a certain political agenda, or at least that's what they'd been before they became Jesus followers. And you just had a number of other people, but one of the things that I think some of us might tend to do is to think that the people that Jesus chose to be his apostles were, super holy, spiritual guys who, no, that's not what it was. Okay, these were just regular guys, normal guys. Now, Jesus saw something in them. He saw some potential there, right? But these were just normal people who had the same kind of problems that all the rest of us have. And one of the problems that a couple of them had would fit into the category of what we might call narcissism. The idea that I'm the most important. I need to be the center of attention. I need to be, the person that everybody is concerned about. I'm concerned about me. I don't want everybody else to be concerned about me. The I, me kind of syndrome. And there are lots of people like that. You know people like that. You might even be one of those people. Okay? So we're going to read this text today and see what lessons we can learn from this about the problem of self-image, self-perception, self-importance, and that sort of thing. See if we can't find some things to think about in regards to a proper balance in life when it comes to self-image and self-perception. So we're going to read from the Simplified New Testament, which is my translation of the New Testament. This happens to be the 4th edition. We'll start in Mark 10, verse 35. Zebedee's sons, James and John, went to Jesus one day and said, "We want you to do something for us." "What?" Jesus asked. "When you are glorified," they said, "we want the positions next to you, one on your right hand and one on your left." "You do not know what you're asking for," Jesus said. "Can you drink from the cup of sorrow I must drink from, or be baptized with suffering as I will be?" "Yes," they said, "we can." Jesus replied, "And you shall. But who sits on my right or left is not for me to decide. Those places have already been assigned by God." When the other 10 heard what James and John had asked for, they were angry. But Jesus called them together and said, "You know what the Gentile lords are like, authoritative and overbearing. I do not want you to be like that. The way to be great is to become a servant. If you want to be important, you must first become a slave. Even I did not come here to be served, but to be a servant, and to give my life for the salvation of the lost." Now, as I said, this is a very interesting text because it gives us a glimpse into the psychology of at least 2 of the men, and the other ones as well, regarding their own self-perception and their self-image and their egos and their need to be important. A lot of people in life need to be important. And if someone has any actual training in psychology and counseling, therapy, that sort of thing, they know that this stems from a very low self-image of oneself, not having good self-esteem. They don't feel valued, they don't feel important, and so they look for ways to make themselves important. This comes out sometimes in life too, where people want to be special. It's very similar, the same idea almost. People want to be very special, so they give themselves very special names, and they refer to themselves in very special ways, and they tell you that they're this kind of a person or that kind of a person, and it's always self-aggrandizing. They make themselves look and sound special and important because they feel like they're not, and therefore they want to be, and so they try to make themselves very self-important. Well, Peter and John, no, excuse me, James and John suffered a little bit from that, and they went to Jesus, and you have to give them credit that they understood who he was, and they understood what was happening, and they understood what was going to occur, at least to some degree. And they understood there was going to be a kingdom, and there were going to be positions of prominence, and there was going to be power and authority. They got that. And so what they were saying is, we want to be two of the chief guys there. Now, they were brothers, right? They had worked together in a business, and now they're Jesus followers. And they're saying, we want to be up there right at the top. We want to sit on your right hand and sit on your left hand. Well, those were typically positions of power and authority that leaders and rulers, kings, emperors, whatever, would give out to people that they liked. And the people in those positions then were very, very important people, very prominent people. And that's what James and John were asking for. They were asking Jesus to make them very important, very prominent, very authoritative people, and that would put them in a position where people would do what they were told, and people would seek the advice of James and John and all that stuff. They wanted to be important, right? So they go to Jesus and ask for this. Now, interestingly enough, in one of the other gospel accounts, it says that it was their mother who prompted them to this, and took them to Jesus and kind of pushed them in and said, go ahead, ask. And Mark doesn't tell the story that way. It doesn't mean that he's wrong or he's not telling the story correctly, or that the other gospel writers that talk about the mother being involved, that they were wrong. They were just, a minor detail that Mark left out. It doesn't change anything. The basic truth of the story is still there. They wanted to be important, and they took it upon themselves, even if their mother prompted them to go to Jesus and say, give us this position, or give us these positions, one on your right, one on your left, and they would be, supremely important. Well, when the other 10 apostles heard about this, what did they do? They got angry. Well, see, that's a little bit of a character flaw too, isn't it? They got angry that James and John were trying to set themselves up ahead of the other ones, and get up there and get the prime positions for themselves. And so they were angry at James and John. See, the whole thing was just unfortunate, and it was rooted in poor self-esteem, low self-esteem, self-images, self-perceptions that weren't what they should have been, you see. And so James and John made an awful mistake, right? And then the others got angry at them for making the mistake. So Jesus gets them all together and says, okay, guys, look, you're going down the wrong road. Okay, you're going down the wrong road. This is not the way you should be thinking. Think about the Gentiles. You're talking about people in the Hellenistic world, right, who have power and authority, and they use it. And he said, what are they like? Well, they're authoritarian, and they push people around, and they take advantage of people. They're not very nice people. He said, look, I don't want you guys to be that way. Don't think in those terms. Don't think in terms of who's the leader and who's in authority and who has the power. Don't think like that. Instead, you need to think about how you can serve others. You see? Instead of trying to lift yourself up and make yourself important, Jesus said, just look to find how you can serve other people. That's what you need to do. Serve other people. Be a servant. Don't worry about who's in charge. Don't worry about who's the leader. That's the wrong focus. Now, it's important that we realize part of what we're dealing with here is a very serious psychological feature about human beings, or the things that are part of our human nature. Okay? God designed us as self-interested beings. We have to like ourselves. We have to love ourselves. We have to be interested in ourselves so that we will take care of ourselves. Okay? When we're hungry, we eat. When we're thirsty, we drink. When we're tired, we rest. At night, we lay down and go to sleep because our bodies need sleep. You see? When we're lonely, we seek out the company of other people. We have needs. And meeting those needs is entirely appropriate. And when we're doing that, it's a form of self-love. And there's nothing wrong with that. Many people are very confused about that. And they think self-love is a problem and you can't love yourself. You have to love other people instead. You can't love yourself. That's wrong. Jesus never taught anything like that. In fact, when he was asked, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, the greatest commandment is to love God. The second greatest commandment is to love others as much as you love yourself. There's nothing wrong with loving yourself. Self-love is entirely appropriate. You have to love yourself, or you'll be a crummy person, and you won't survive. You have to love yourself. Jesus said, but you need to love others as much as you love yourself. The New Testament talks a good deal, not just the New Testament, the Old Testament too, talks about humility, having a proper understanding of who and what you are. Now, some people go to the opposite extreme of what we're talking about here, and they think they're just worthless slugs, that they're just scum of the earth, dirt, and they're terrible and they're awful. That's not true. Every human being is created in the image of God. That makes you important. Every human being was loved by God so much that to save us, to save me, to save you, to save each one of us, he became a human being in the person of Jesus and offered himself as a sacrifice on the cross to save you and to save me. Why? Because he loves us. We are not unimportant, worthless scum. We are created in the image of God, the creator of the universe. And he died to save us so that we could have a relationship with him. That makes us important. But we have to be careful so that we don't let that get out of hand and become focused on being too important, and wanting to be in charge and wanting to be the leader. Leadership isn't anything that anybody should really want, because it's not fun. It's hard. It's not an easy burden to carry. If you really understood what being a leader is and the responsibilities and the challenges and the difficulties, most people would say, yeah, I'm not really sure I want to be the leader. That's, but somebody's got to be the leader. And there are people who are really qualified to do that. But we need to understand the difference between being willing to do an important job and the idea of self-importance. I'm important because I do this job. I've encountered lots of leaders in the church, and they're very quick to tell you, I'm one of the elders here. I'm one of the elders here. Oh, really? Good for you. What does that mean? Well, elder means an older man. So I'm one of the older men here. And the implication is, because I'm older, I have wisdom, and I make good decisions, and I have spiritual insight and knowledge that other people don't have, and therefore I can help. I can help. See, that's where the whole thing should be going, toward helping, toward serving, toward making a difference. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm an older man with experience and knowledge and insight because I've studied and God has helped me and given me these things, and I can use those to help other people. But see, that's the whole point. Getting to a point in life where you can be a leader, which is helping other people. That's what it is. It's not sitting in the big chair and having everybody go, oh, great leader, oh, great. It isn't that. That's not what it is. You see, sociologists study cultures around the world, societies around the world. Anthropologists do the same. And what they know about modern Western culture, and I understand that many of you who are watching these videos are not from a modern Western culture. Many of you are in Africa, many of you are in India. Okay, but there are segments of African culture which are very modern and contemporary, just like in America. Segments of Indian culture, which are very much like Western culture. Okay, you have features like this in your countries as well. But one of the things that sociologists in America understand about the West, not just America, but the Western cultures in general, is that they've become very narcissistic. Very narcissistic. People are very self-absorbed. Everything's about me. What I think, how I feel, what I want, what I decide. Me, I. Everything's about me. And in Christianity, that just can't be the focus. You see, James and John individually were saying, I want to be important. I want to sit in your right hand. I want to sit in your left hand. I want to be important. And Jesus was saying, guys, you don't understand what you're asking for. God's already assigned those places. Not up to me. That's already been taken care of. Your focus needs to be how you can serve, how you can help, how you can make a difference. I didn't come here to be served, Jesus said. I came here to serve and to die so other people could live. You see, that's real leadership. He was supremely important because he laid aside his own needs to serve the needs of everyone else. Jesus was important, but he didn't suffer from the narcissistic disorder of self-importance. He was willing to lay that aside and be a servant and help other people. Can you do that? Can you be the kind of person who's more concerned about the needs of others and who can help other people than you are about your position and your prominence and your importance. You see? How can you serve others? That's what this text is about. That's what Jesus wanted people to think about and wanted them to understand. So you should think about these things for the next few days, weeks, months, however long it takes. And while you're doing that, remember to read your Bible, pray, go to church, and may God bless.